Hi, my name's Jaymee Mack, and I wrote and produced and co-star in It's Not You, It's Not Me.
I'm Justine. I'm asexual and romantic, and I talked a lot to Jaymee about it as it went on. I'm one of the organizers of the local asexual community, Ascent Arrow community. I am a volunteer for AVEN, the Asexual Visibility and Education Network, and I chair the board of directors for Asexual Outreach. The basic definition is that asexuality is a lack of sexual attraction or a lack of innate desire for sex. A fourth orientation, some say, compared to being straight, gay, or bi.
Where do you identify on the spectrum?
So I identify as asexual. I have, to the best of my knowledge, never experienced sexual attraction to anyone or an innate desire to have sex with anyone. But I do identify as very romantic. For me, what that means is that I still feel attraction to people, but the attraction leads me to want to do things like cuddle or hold hands or go on really corny dates. But it just never gets to the point for me where I ever want sex.
So Justine's watched an earlier version of It's Not You, It's Not Me, but we're about to show her the final version and get some of her thoughts about it. I'm excited to show you this film.
The first time I saw it was amazing, and I am so excited to see the final version.
No pressure. Okay, all right. I'm ready, I think. Okay, all right. All right.
Come on, I was playing. Okay. Yeah.
I can empathize so much with Chris's exasperation right here.
Oh, there's also exasperation on Tina's side.
I think one of the most powerful things about this short film to me is how much it's two-sided.
Writing the first draft of this, I was definitely very biased towards myself because it's based on a relationship I had with someone on the spectrum. But Peter, our director, really helped guide it towards showing both perspectives.
I think watching this the first time myself, and now, again, just so many feels were coming up for me, but also an ability to empathize more with the sexual side of it. Like seeing myself and Chris, I mean, obviously there's a lot of dynamics that are different, but seeing the pain from the sexual side too just really hits.
I made the film in part to process the relationship, and I didn't fully understand a lot of the stuff that was probably going on in his head until I made it.
It's just sex. It's kind of a waste of time.
I heard that a lot.
I mean, it does kind of feel like a waste of time.
I
It takes
feel like
time.
that sometimes also. So I guess the major difference between the last version I think you saw and this one was the ending. I guess, yeah, like, what are your thoughts?
Oh, so many thoughts. I guess first off, I know you just mentioned that you made this film a little bit to help yourself process your own relationship. Thank you for having the unintended side effect of helping me process my own past one.
I kind of want to hug you right now.
Can we hug?
Yes.
Super, super relatable were bits where Tina was like, are we gonna have sex, or when are we gonna have sex, or please, when is next time? For some background, my relationship was a slightly different dynamic, if only because I was dating a cis man who was sexual. My partner at the time had a very high libido, so I made a rule that every second time we could have sex, but at the other time I wanted cuddles. And and then one day we both misremembered. And so I thought it was a cuddle night, and he thought it was a sex night, and we were both very frustrated. In an earlier cut, too, that didn't make it to this cut, Tina, the character, said, "You've always been with white women or with bigger-breasted women, and like, are my breasts just too small?" It really hit me, too, because I think the man that I was dating at the time felt unattractive because I wasn't attracted to him. Another thing that really pops out to me more in this cut than in the last one, actually, is how the conversation between Chris and Tina goes from, like, do you think you might be asexual, directly into where do you see us in the future? And that is not Tina's fault, but often conversations happen in that order and directly after. And from my perspective as an asexual, I think that's a lot of where I developed the idea that my asexuality was going to be the reason I was going to die alone and never loved. Because that was always the flow of the conversation. I'm asexual, therefore there can't be a future of love. never say never. I think the power of this story for me is how much of myself I see in it. But I have to be careful because I see so much of myself in it that I'm convinced their relationship will go as shittily as mine did, which is not always the case, obviously. When I was in that place, it didn't work. We did try opening it up. I am polyamorous right now, so I have one boyfriend and 2 girlfriends. And that's my happy place. I describe it, like I think even if I wasn't asexual, the way I experience love is stronger when there's more than one person. It's like I try to describe it as like it's a chord. When you're playing on the piano, a single note is beautiful, and a chord is also beautiful, but in a very different way. So monogamy is beautiful in its own way, but polyamory for me is just, it fits me. And we did try opening up our relationship with my ex. Unfortunately, I think he's more of a naturally monogamous person. And also, I didn't know myself going into that relationship. So I think going in and then discovering that I'm asexual, discovering that I don't like sex, discovering all of these things with him, he was going on his own journey that I can't really speak to. And when we opened the relationship up, it was a very different place than when we presumed we would be when we started the relationship. So I think that a lot of the expectations had just been completely wildly off, and ultimately the gap was just too far.
Do you know aces who are in mixed monogamous relationships?
I do, and some of them work out amazingly. I am going to put that with an addendum in that all of the ace mixed relationships I know of that work beautifully happened once the asexual knew their own identity.
Yeah.
So you walk into that relationship knowing it and having that expectation and knowing that that's going to be a negotiation. It's not to say that you can't have a successful relationship if you're in a relationship with someone who later comes out as ace or later identifies as ace. That's just, you walk in with a very different expectation. And sometimes that can be difficult to navigate. Oof, I think I over-identify with Chris, and I'm just going to say that he's me. But if I'm going to be a little bit more objective about it, it sounds like he would easily fit under the asexual umbrella, but there is a spectrum there. Humans aren't simple. So there's kind of on one end of the spectrum, there's completely asexual, where you feel no sexual attraction, but there's a lot of gray area between that and being sexual in the traditional sense of the word. There's a space there where some people only develop sexual attraction to other people once they've formed a strong emotional bond, and that's demisexual. There's also just gray sexual, is a way of people identifying where they don't feel sexual enough to fit into mainstream dialogue, but they're not completely lacking in sexual attraction. And I think that it's possible that Chris fits somewhere in there. He seems to be really at the beginning of his journey in finding out who he is.
How would you distinguish someone who identifies as gray sexual versus somebody who doesn't but says they have a low libido?
The question of libido is really an interesting one. A lot of people connect that to sexuality, but interestingly enough, there are asexuals out there with a very, very high libido. They may do things like masturbate to take care of it, or they may just not want to ever include another person. They may also feel fine including another person in that activity if it makes that other person happy, and they just don't feel the sexual attraction that leads them to want to do it with a particular person. In a way, you're talking to someone who's like, never experienced sexual attraction, so I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not qualified for that one. But yeah, I think that once you realize that libido is an undirected, just natural urge that some people have. Some people have a lot of it, some people have a little bit of it. I've never really had any of it. Yeah. And then I think sexual attraction is what funnels that urge towards a certain activity.
How should sexual people approach sex with an asexual partner, and how can they navigate consent when the power dynamics are different when one person doesn't experience sexual attraction? It's a very long question.
Carefully.
Yeah.
Very, very carefully. If an asexual person is very self-aware and has been in the community a while, knows exactly what their attitudes are towards sex, it can be a lot easier to navigate that conversation. Some asexuals greatly enjoy sex. It is a physiological stimulus at its base, and will be more than happy to have sex if it makes their sexual partner happy. Others, like myself, are really not a fan. Don't know how to have sex in a way that is mentally healthy for me. So my answer to that conversation with a sexual partner will be probably not. If you're navigating that conversation with an asexual or somebody that you think might be asexual but is very early in their journey, that just might be a very long conversation. It might be a conversation that has to happen over a couple years even as they explore that dynamic. Maybe they say yes and later they regret it. That doesn't make you an evil person. It doesn't make them a liar. It just means that they're early in their journey and they're figuring things out, and it's okay to not know the answer. Seeing both sides represented in such a raw manner is beautiful. And thank you. I'm really, really just grateful that this film can exist.
Thank you for sharing the experience with us. I think that's probably the highest compliment that we could get as filmmakers, is having the story resonate with people, especially people that the story is about and for. And all I can hope is that other people are able to get similar things out of the film.
For me, it was very much a film about navigating pain in some ways. And I think that will resonate possibly further than just asexuality.
I hope, if you've watched the film or are about to, that you enjoy it. Or even if you do or don't, let us know what you think. We're here to just have conversation and introduce more of the world to asexuality. And thank you so much for sharing it with us.